My name is Emily. I'm 35 years old, and up until about 4 months ago, I truly believed I had the kind of life other people envied. Not perfect, but close. Stable, predictable, comfortable in all the right ways. I live in the suburbs of Minneapolis. Two-story home, small backyard with a wooden swing Josh built for our daughter last fall. A tidy kitchen with white-tiled backsplash, two Labradors who shed like crazy, a silver SUV that smells faintly of baby wipes and iced coffee. And until everything fell apart, I thought I had a husband who loved me. Josh, my high school sweetheart. We met at 17, got engaged at 23, married at 25. We grew up together, literally and emotionally. He's a contractor, self-employed, good with his hands, good with money, good with people. Everyone always liked Josh. He had that easy charm, the kind that made people feel safe, like nothing could shake him. I loved that about him, especially when I couldn't stop shaking myself.
I work in pediatric speech therapy, part-time since our daughter, Lily, was born. She's 6 now, obsessed with mermaids, lemonade, and asking impossible questions like, do hearts get sad too? I think about that one a lot lately. Josh used to joke that I felt too much, that I carried the world like it was a purse I couldn't put down. But he said it with a smile, like it was something he admired, even if he didn't fully understand. I was always the worrier, the overthinker, the one who double-checked the locks, the one who remembered birthdays and packed extra snacks and apologized when I wasn't even sure what for. And he was the steady one, the balance. He never raised his voice, never came home angry. He kissed my forehead every morning, brought me gas station coffee after a long day. People thought we were solid. I did too. Until the cracks showed up. Tiny ones at first, so small I convinced myself they didn't matter. Josh had never been secretive. For years, he barely even used a passcode. We shared playlists, calendars, grocery lists. I knew his login to everything. That was just how we were. But one night, as I reached for his phone to check the weather, it buzzed, and the screen was locked. Not just locked, Face ID only. I laughed, tried to joke. Wow, top secret now. He looked up from the sink and shrugged. Just updated the security settings. You know, work stuff. And I nodded, smiled, pushed down the flicker of discomfort in my gut. That flicker would turn into a fire.
There were other things. Late-night texts that made him smile and disappear into the bathroom. Weekend errands that suddenly took 2 hours instead of 1. The way he started checking the garage camera from his phone, always just making sure I closed the door. And maybe the biggest shift of all, he stopped really seeing me. He was still present, technically, physically in the house, saying the right words, doing all the right things, but there was a distance, a disconnection I couldn't explain. His eyes wouldn't linger, his laughter came slower, his hugs felt rehearsed. I started asking myself questions I never thought I'd ask. Was he tired? Was I boring him? Were we just growing apart? I even Googled emotional disconnection in marriage one night while he was asleep, as if WebMD could diagnose my heartbreak. But I didn't find answers, just more questions. And then I found the phone.
It was a Sunday afternoon, mid-October. Cool air, crunchy leaves, the kind of day that should have been peaceful. Josh was outside with Lily, teaching her how to ride her bike. I'd gone to grab groceries. Nothing big, just a few things from the co-op down the street. I put the bags in the trunk of his SUV, and as I went to rearrange a spill from the dog food bag, I noticed something wedged between the seat and the floor mat. A phone. Not his phone. Not the one I saw every day. Not the one Lily sometimes played games on. This one was different. Black case, no lock screen photo, no fingerprint smudges. Just sitting there. Hidden, but not well. I froze. My first thought was, maybe it's old. Maybe he just forgot to tell me he kept a backup. Maybe it's for work. Maybe. But I turned it on, and what I saw changed my life. The phone buzzed to life with a faint hum, and I remember my hands were trembling. There was no lock screen, no passcode. It opened like it wanted to be found. And maybe that was the worst part. Because when you discover something like that, something you were never meant to see, you're not ready for how easy it feels. Just one swipe, 1 second, and the truth comes flooding in. The first thing I saw was the wallpaper, a photo, but not of Lily, not of us. It was a woman, blonde, young, maybe late 20s, sitting in what looked like the passenger seat of a car, his car, smiling, barefaced, casual, like she'd taken the photo herself while he was driving. My throat went dry. I opened the Messages app, and there they were. Hundreds of texts, blue and gray bubbles stretching back months. Hearts, inside jokes, little videos, late night thinking about yous. My husband had another life.
Her name was Vanessa. The way he texted her, God, it was tender, thoughtful, soft, not just physical, emotional. He told her things he hadn't said to me in years, that he missed her laugh, that he couldn't stop thinking about her lips, that he loved the way she looked in his sweatshirt. I felt like I was reading someone else's love story, and I hated how familiar it sounded. Not because it resembled the way he talked to me now, but because it sounded like how he used to talk to me. The man I fell in love with was still in there. He just wasn't mine anymore.
I scrolled through their photos, some selfies, some hotel rooms, some worse. I stopped counting after a dozen. There were voice notes, too. Quick, whispered ones. Probably recorded while I was asleep or at work or putting Lily to bed. In one of them, he said, "I wish I could fall asleep next to you every night. Everything else feels fake without you." I dropped the phone. It landed face down on the passenger seat. Everything else feels fake? Was I the fake part? Our house? Our daughter? Me? I didn't cry. Not right away. I sat there in silence for I don't know how long. The groceries were melting in the trunk. The dogs were barking from inside the house. I could hear Lily's bike tires squeaking up the driveway. And still, I couldn't move. Because the person I had built my world around, the man I trusted with my body, my mind, my future, wasn't who I thought he was. He was someone else. He belonged to someone else. And I had no idea when he stopped belonging to me. When I finally walked into the house, everything looked the same. That was the cruelest part. The same smell of cinnamon from the candle I lit every morning. The same framed photo of us on the mantle, our wedding in Montana, laughing in the snow. The same pile of shoes by the door that I always complained about. Nothing had changed. except me. Josh was sitting on the couch, Lily curled next to him, cheeks flushed from riding. He looked up, smiled. "Hey, you're back." I nodded. "I forgot dog food," I lied, placing the bag quietly on the counter. Ran back to grab it. He stood and walked over, kissed my temple, like always. And in that moment, his hand on my back, his scent so familiar, so close, I realized I didn't know who this man was. I didn't know when he stopped being mine, or how long I'd been loving a stranger.
That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, listening to his breath beside me, even, steady. I looked at his hands, his wedding ring, the way he muttered in his sleep about work. And all I could think was, who was he with while I was folding laundry? Where was he when I called and he didn't pick up? How many nights had he lied to me, then come home and kissed my daughter goodnight?
I didn't confront him that night. I needed to be sure. Not just emotionally, but legally. So I took photos, screenshots, messages, voicemails. I emailed them to myself, quietly, carefully. Then I deleted the history from the phone, put it back where I found it. Because for now, I wasn't ready to let him know I knew. Not yet. I needed time to figure out how to grieve a life that hadn't even ended yet, but already felt like it was gone. There's a particular kind of heartbreak no one warns you about. The kind where you know the person you love is lying to you, you know there's someone else. You've seen it in their words, their photos, their voice. And yet, you have to pretend. Pretend you're fine. Pretend you don't know. Because the truth isn't just emotional. It's logistical. It's parenting schedules. It's finances. It's where will my daughter sleep next week? And I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for the war that would follow the truth. So I stayed quiet. For now. The days that followed were surreal. I moved like a ghost through my own life, making breakfast, helping Lily with homework, smiling through bedtime stories, all while carrying a storm inside me. I watched Josh more carefully than ever. The way he checked his phone at red lights, the way he kept it face down on the nightstand, the way he disappeared to run errands and came back 2 hours later with nothing but a bottle of soda. Everything became suspicious, every moment a clue, every silence a betrayal. And still, I said nothing.
I started keeping a journal, not just for my emotions, but for facts, dates, times, messages I saw, phone call logs. It felt insane, and yet necessary, because part of me knew what was coming. I wasn't just grieving a marriage. I was building a case for myself, for my child, for the version of me that would have to fight for truth later. It was like living in two timelines at once. The now, where I pretended to be the same wife I'd always been, and the after, the version of the story where I would finally shatter the illusion. But God, it was exhausting.
One night, about a week after I found the phone, Josh asked me to go away with him for the weekend. Just the two of us. He said we needed time to reconnect. He booked a cabin up north, near Lake Superior, said his mom would watch Lily. My stomach turned, because I knew what he was doing, trying to smooth the surface, trying to reset me, trying to stay ahead of the suspicion he must have felt in my silence. And I almost said no, but I didn't. I said yes, not because I wanted to save our marriage, but because I wanted to see, to look him in the eye, alone, to hear the lies without distractions, to give him one last chance to be honest. Spoiler, he wasn't. The cabin was beautiful. A-frame roof, rustic fireplace, too quiet. He poured wine, made dinner, played our old playlist. He kissed me like he used to, and for a moment, a terrible, confusing moment, I felt my body responding to his warmth. I felt memory rise like smoke. But it wasn't real, because the entire time, I knew he was texting her. When he got up to grab more firewood, I checked the second phone again. It was in his glove box, unlocked. She had messaged him 20 minutes earlier. Miss you already. Wish it was me with you in that cabin. And his reply? Soon, baby. I promise. That was the night my silence turned into something else. Not grief, not rage, not panic, but clarity. He wasn't going to confess. He wasn't going to end it. He was going to keep living both lives, as long as I let him. And I was done pretending.
The next morning, I told him we needed to talk. We were sitting on the deck, coffee steaming between us, a lake stretching wide and empty behind him. He looked up, eyes cautious. Okay. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just asked one question. How long have you been cheating on me? His face went white, completely still. No denial, no confusion, just instant, raw, unfiltered fear. He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. Don't lie. His shoulders sank, and for the first time, he told me the truth. Or at least, part of it.
He said it had been almost a year, that it started by accident, as if love could fall into someone else's bed without intention. He said he didn't mean to hurt me, that he still loved me in his own way, that Vanessa made him feel alive again. I remember staring at him, the way his lips moved, the way he twisted his wedding ring around his finger, and I thought, this man is not mine, not anymore. We drove home in silence. Lily ran into my arms when we walked in, and I held her so tight, like she was the only thing in my world still untouched by the lies. But even she asked me that night, Mommy, are you sad? I smiled, kissed her forehead, and whispered, just a little, but I'll be okay. The next few days passed in fragments, moments that felt like snapshots from someone else's life. Signing a school permission slip, switching the laundry, texting a client about rescheduling an appointment. And then, in between it all, the echoes of him. His silence, his guilt, his pathetic attempts to return to normal. I could tell he didn't know what version of himself to be around me anymore. Affectionate? Apologetic? Distant? He hovered like a man walking through a minefield waiting for the next explosion. But there weren't any. Not yet. Because I wasn't done planning my exit. I called my sister. I hadn't told anyone yet, not even her. But when I heard her voice, something inside me broke. I didn't even get the words out right. Just stammered, It's Josh. There's someone else. She didn't gasp, didn't ask how I knew. She just said, Do you need me to come over? That's love. That's what it's supposed to look like. No conditions, no performative sympathy. She came over that night, brought wine and a folder of local attorneys, just in case, and a hug that didn't let go too quickly.
The next step wasn't just leaving him, it was preparing to be without him. And that was the terrifying part. Because we were still technically married, still tied in every way that matters. The house, the car, our daughter, the shared memories etched into furniture and routines. I looked around our living room one night and realized almost everything in it had a story. The bookshelf we built together on a Sunday afternoon, the throw blanket we argued about because he hated the color, the couch we picked when I was pregnant, sitting in the store laughing about how many juice boxes it would endure. Even the damn throw pillows held grief. How do you leave a place where every object whispers what you've lost?
But grief wasn't enough to keep me. Not anymore. So I called an attorney. I met with her 2 days later, a kind-eyed woman named Megan, who spoke like someone who's walked too many people through emotional fires. She listened, took notes, nodded when I told her about the second phone, the messages, the timeline. Then she said the words that would start everything. Let's begin with protecting your daughter. I didn't tell Josh about the lawyer, not yet. But I started moving things. One drawer at a time, one cabinet, one hard drive, one folder, one photo box. I opened a new bank account, changed the password to my email, turned off location sharing. He didn't even notice. Maybe he was too busy managing the collapse of his secret life, or maybe he was just too confident I'd never really leave. Either way, I was already halfway gone.
The real goodbye happened on a Tuesday afternoon. It wasn't planned. It wasn't dramatic. It was just quiet. I picked Lily up from school, brought her home, settled her with a coloring book. Josh was upstairs, home early from work, something about a client canceling. I walked into the room. He looked up, startled. I didn't sit down. I just said, "I want a separation." He froze. Wait, I thought we were going to therapy. I thought we were... No, I cut in. You thought I'd get over it, that I'd pretend. He started to speak again, excuses, bargaining, the usual. But I held up my hand. "I'm not angry," I said. And I wasn't. Not in that moment. I was done. I'm sad. I'm exhausted. I'm ashamed of how long I let this happen without seeing it. But I'm not going to waste another minute waiting for someone who made a choice to leave me before I ever left him.
He cried. I didn't. He begged. I didn't waver. Because love, real love, doesn't survive in secrecy. And I had spent too long sacrificing my peace for the illusion of stability. It was over. And it had to be. Later that night, when Lily asked why Daddy was sleeping in the guest room, I knelt beside her bed and told her something soft, something age-appropriate, something real enough not to feel like a lie. I said, sometimes grown-ups need space to fix things that feel broken. She looked at me for a long time. Then she whispered, "Will we still be a family?" I held her hand and I said, "We'll always be a family, just maybe a different kind."
The thing no one tells you about leaving is this. It doesn't feel like freedom right away. At first, it just feels like silence. An uncomfortable, echoing silence where routine used to be. You notice the empty space at the dinner table, the toothbrush still in the bathroom, the sound of only your own footsteps moving through the house. The absence is louder than the presence ever was. Josh moved into a short-term rental the following week. It was close by. We agreed to keep things stable for Lily. Shared custody, alternating weekends, plenty of check-ins. We kept it civil. Too civil, maybe. Because while the logistics moved forward, the emotions stayed stuck. At night, when Lily was asleep and the house was still, I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how a man I trusted with my whole heart could lie to my face for a year and still sleep next to me like nothing was broken. I replayed conversations from months ago, dinner talks, casual glances, days I doubted my own instincts and convinced myself I was paranoid. But I wasn't paranoid. I was right. And now that truth sat inside me like a weight I couldn't put down.
Camila called once, just once. I didn't answer. I watched the screen buzz with her name, the name of the woman who used to braid my hair before dates, hold my hand during ultrasounds, sneak wine into movie theaters with me in college. My best friend. My other betrayal. She left a voicemail. I know you hate me. You should. But I need you to know I didn't plan for this. I didn't want it to happen this way. I still love you, Em. I always will. I deleted it because love doesn't look like silence. Love doesn't look like hiding. Love doesn't crawl into bed with the one person you never thought you'd have to fear.
The therapist I started seeing told me I was in emotional shock. She said I needed to grieve the marriage like a death, because in many ways it was. A death of safety, a death of certainty, a death of the version of me who believed in forever. I hated the sound of that. I wasn't ready to say goodbye to the me that believed love was supposed to be enough. I wasn't ready to admit that I hadn't just lost a husband, I'd lost myself. The cracks started to show in everyday moments. Dropping Lily off at school and crying in the car after, lying to friends about why I couldn't make it to brunch, forgetting appointments, misplacing keys, zoning out mid-conversation. One night, while cleaning out a drawer, I found an old anniversary card from Josh. It read, "I'd choose you in every lifetime." And I laughed. A cold, bitter laugh that turned into tears. Because I believed it. I really did. And now I had to rebuild a life around the truth that he didn't.
He texted me often. Not about Lily, that was expected, but little things. Hope your day's okay. Miss seeing you around the house. Don't forget to get the car's oil changed. He sent a photo of our old dog curled up with Lily, captioned, "Wish things were different." And for a second, a dangerous second, I wanted to reply. I wanted to fall back into the safety of what was, but I didn't. Because I knew what that kind of nostalgia was. A trap dressed in softness. A way to keep me tethered to someone who had already let go.
One night, I walked into Lily's room and found her crying under the covers. I asked what was wrong. She whispered, "Did Dowdy stop loving you?" And I swear, my heart split in two. I wrapped her up in my arms, kissed her forehead, and told her something that was true and also not enough. Sometimes love gets really confused, sweetheart. But that doesn't mean it disappears. I held her until she fell asleep. Then I went into my room and cried harder than I had since the day I found the phone. Because I realized something no one warns you about. The heartbreak doesn't end when they leave. Sometimes it begins there.
It happened by accident. Or maybe not. Maybe the universe got tired of my silence. I was walking out of the grocery store with Lily, a short list, just eggs, milk, bananas. She was holding my hand, skipping beside me, humming something from Frozen under her breath. And then I saw her, Camila, standing by her car, hair in a low bun, sunglasses perched on her head, holding a small bouquet, peonies and sunflowers, the kind she used to bring me on hard days. Our eyes met, and the world went still. Lily didn't notice. She tugged my hand, chatting away about popsicles. But Camila? She froze. And then, slowly, started walking toward me. My breath caught in my chest. I wasn't ready. I hadn't rehearsed this moment. Not really. I'd imagined it 100 ways. Screaming, slapping her, walking away without a word. But the reality was quieter, heavier, more human. She stopped a few feet away. "Emily," she said. I didn't answer. She looked down at the flowers in her hand, then back up. "Can we talk, please?" Lily tugged again. "Mommy!" I bent down, gave her the keys. "Go wait in the car, baby. I'll be right there." She nodded, skipped off, and then it was just us. We stood in silence for a moment, two women who once knew everything about each other, now strangers. She looked thinner, tired. Her voice was shaky when she finally spoke. "I don't know how to say this without sounding like a monster." I crossed my arms. "Try." She swallowed hard. "I didn't mean for any of it to happen. I didn't plan to. I swear, Emily, I didn't wake up one day and think, let me destroy my best friend's life." "But you did," I said, my voice flat. "You did destroy it." She winced. "I was lonely, and he was there. He listened. He understood things about me that I didn't?" I snapped. "Is that where this is going? That somehow I made it happen?" "No, God, no. I'm not trying to justify it. I know it was wrong. I know I hurt you." She stepped closer. "I miss you, Em. I miss us."
I felt a lump rise in my throat, not out of love, not even rage, but grief. Because in that moment, I saw not the woman who betrayed me, but the friend I lost. I remembered our late-night drives, the times she held my hair when I was sick, the inside jokes, the sleepovers, the way she cried harder than I did when my dad passed away. And now she was this, the woman who made my husband feel alive again, the woman who kissed him in the shadows while I waited at home. "I trusted you with everything," I said softly. "My marriage, my child, my secrets. You were supposed to be my safe place." Tears welled in her eyes. I know, and I hate myself for it every day. I looked at the flowers still in her hands. Is that supposed to fix it? She followed my gaze. "No, they're not for you. They're for your mom. I was going to visit her grave today. I still do, every year." That hit harder than I expected. Because she had loved my mother. She had been there for years through all the grief, the milestones, the small, sacred things. But that version of her was gone now. And I didn't know how to mourn someone who was still alive.
"Why didn't you stop?" I asked. She didn't hesitate. Because it felt good, and because I thought maybe he was meant for me instead. There it was, the truth. Ugly, human, brutal. And suddenly, I felt calm. Not because I forgave her, not because I understood, but because I finally heard the thing I needed most. It was never about me. I didn't fail as a wife. I didn't miss the signs because I was blind or weak. I was just collateral. They were broken long before I stepped into the wreckage. I don't hate you, I said finally. She looked stunned. But I don't forgive you either. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I get it. And you don't get to be in Lily's life. Not now. Maybe not ever. She flinched. I understand. I turned to leave. Took a few steps before I heard her voice behind me. I'm sorry, Emily, for everything. I didn't turn around. Because sorry doesn't fix betrayal. It just marks the place where healing might begin, eventually.
After that conversation with Camila, I didn't cry. Not at first. I drove Lily home, made her dinner, helped with homework, tucked her in like any other night. I did the dishes, I folded laundry, I replied to a work email like I wasn't slowly unraveling inside. Then I sat in the shower with the water running for nearly an hour, fully clothed. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just about Josh or Camila. This was about me, too. Because for months, maybe even years, I had been lying to myself. I told myself Josh was just tired, that the distance between us was temporary, that all couples go through dry spells, that it wasn't weird he didn't reach for me anymore, that it wasn't strange how he turned his phone away from me, that I was being too sensitive, too emotional, too much. I remembered once, maybe 9 months before I found the phone, I asked him if he was still attracted to me. We were brushing our teeth. I asked it like a joke, light and easy. He paused, spit, then said, "Why would you ask that?" And I laughed, tried to shake it off. But the way he didn't answer, it stayed with me. I knew. Somewhere deep inside, I knew. Denial is a seductive thing. It lets you sleep at night. It lets you kiss your husband good morning. It lets you show up to parent-teacher conferences smiling, even though something inside you is bleeding. I told myself I was protecting my daughter. But really, I was protecting my illusion, the picture I had painted of our life. Perfect marriage, happy home, loyal friends. It was easier to protect the frame than admit the canvas had already rotted. I ignored the smudges, the cracks, the mildew of silence creeping into our conversations. And maybe I wasn't just lying to myself. Maybe I was choosing not to look. The truth is, Josh had stopped loving me long before I found that second phone. He still cared, maybe, still respected the idea of us, still played the role well enough to pass in public. But love? The real kind? The kind that shows up, stays present, fights for you? That had disappeared. He hadn't held my face in his hands in years. He hadn't told me I was beautiful without prompting since before Lily was born. And every time I initiated intimacy, he pulled away just a little too quickly, with some excuse. I'm tired. Early meeting tomorrow. My head hurts. But I didn't push, because I didn't want to be the desperate wife. I didn't want to see what I feared. So I made excuses for him, and for me. I thought about therapy. Not for him, not couples counseling. For me.
because I needed to understand why I stayed, why I accepted so little for so long, why I built a life around someone who slowly erased me from it. The therapist, not Megan, the lawyer, but a new one. Her name was Rachel, and in our second session, she said something that stuck with me. You didn't miss the signs. You dismissed your intuition. There's a difference. That hit like a punch to the chest, because my gut had screamed at me for months, but I buried it under to-do lists, school lunches, weekend barbecues, fake smiles, Christmas cards, and I called it love. One night, I sat down with a notebook and wrote out every moment I could remember where something felt off. Every lie, every sideways glance, every night he said he had to work late and came home smelling like a new cologne I didn't buy. Page after page. And when I looked down at it, that list, that timeline, I realized something. This wasn't one betrayal. It was a slow starvation, 1,000 tiny cuts I bandaged with hope until I bled out completely.
But the most painful part wasn't losing Josh. It was realizing I had lost myself. Somewhere along the way, I stopped asking what I needed, stopped carving out space for my voice, my wants, my boundaries. I became a reflection of what everyone else needed me to be, and I didn't even notice. So maybe this wasn't just about betrayal. Maybe this was a reckoning, a forced reckoning with the version of myself I abandoned, quietly, gently, intentionally, to keep the peace. And now it was time to go back and find her.
The real breakdown didn't happen when I found the phone, or when I moved Josh out, or even when I faced Camila. It happened on a random Thursday afternoon in the middle of a Target parking lot, with a cart full of paper towels, cereal, and a dress Lily wanted for school pictures. I was buckling her in, smiling, nodding along to whatever story she was telling about her art project. And then, out of nowhere, she said, "I hope Daddy's girlfriend is nice." My hands froze. I turned to her slowly. "What did you say, baby?" She blinked at me, innocent. "Daddy's friend. The one from the restaurant. She had sparkly nails and laughed a lot. He said she was helping him decorate his apartment." A pause, and she kissed him on the cheek when they thought I wasn't looking. I don't remember driving home. I don't remember getting her inside, or putting the groceries away, or making dinner. But I remember the way my hands shook, the way I locked myself in the bathroom and sat on the cold tile floor with my back against the door, like I was trying to hold back an ocean with just my spine. He was still lying, still bringing her around, still folding my daughter into his fantasy world like nothing ever happened. I called him that night. I didn't scream, didn't beg. I just said, "Don't ever let our daughter see your affair partner again." There was silence, then the cowardly excuse-making I'd come to expect. It's not what you think. It was just once." I cut him off. "You've made your choices, but Lily doesn't deserve to be part of your lie." He had the audacity to sound offended, said I was trying to control him, that I was poisoning Lily against him. I hung up, because I wasn't going to argue with someone who treated betrayal like a scheduling issue. The next day, I filed for full custody. I didn't want to cut him out of Lily's life. Truly, I didn't. But I would protect her. From instability, from confusion, from being forced to play happy while her father rewrote the narrative. My lawyer said we had a case. With enough documentation, The affair, the secondary phone, Lily's comment. We could at least push for monitored visitation until things stabilized. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something that resembled power. Not revenge, not bitterness, just clarity. But the fallout came fast. He showed up at the house that weekend, pounding on the door, voice raised, anger boiling beneath his usually polished tone. Lily was at my sister's, thank God. He shouted from the porch, "You're trying to erase me!" I stepped outside, closed the door behind me. I was done giving him the space to perform inside the life he'd already broken. "I'm trying to protect our daughter," I said calmly. "She needs both of us." "No, she needs the truth, and she needs stability. You can't give her either." His face twisted into something unfamiliar. "You're punishing me." "No," I said. "I'm finally standing up for myself. That must feel unfamiliar to you." He stood there, stunned, like he didn't recognize the woman in front of him anymore. And maybe he didn't, because I wasn't the same. I wasn't the woman who'd spent years shrinking herself to make room for his moods. I wasn't the wife who excused his silence or second-guessed my own gut. I was someone else now. Someone harder. Someone wiser. Someone finally willing to burn the whole illusion down if it meant saving what was left of me. He didn't say another word, just turned and walked down the steps. And as I watched him disappear into the night, I realized something. This wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the end of an era, of who I had been, what I had tolerated, the story I had clung to out of fear. Everything had broken open, but in the wreckage, there was light. Tiny flickers, barely there, but real. And for the first time, I believed that maybe, just maybe, I could rebuild. You think the storm ends when the truth comes out, that once everything is shattered, once the liar is gone and the damage is exposed, you'll feel something like peace. But no one tells you what comes next. No one talks about the quiet after.
The house felt colder, not because he was gone, but because something inside me had shut off. I moved through the days like I was on autopilot. Wake up, get Lily dressed, pack her lunch, smile at the crossing guard, come home, sit in silence, scroll mindlessly, try to cry, sometimes succeed. I wasn't angry anymore. Wasn't even sad. I was just empty, like all the emotion had drained out and left a shell behind. I stopped checking Josh's social media, stopped wondering where he was, who he was with, whether they were still together. It didn't matter anymore. Whatever version of him I had loved, he didn't exist. He was a story I told myself, a role he played. And I had finally stopped auditioning for the part of his patient, perfect wife. But that didn't mean I was healed. Just exposed. Like a wound still raw, too early to stitch. I started doing small things for myself. Not grand gestures, no spa days or vacations, just small rebellions, like cooking food only I liked, sleeping in the middle of the bed, wearing the red lipstick he once said was too much. I'd forgotten how many little parts of myself I had edited down for his comfort. Now I was reclaiming them one by one, and it felt tentative, uncertain, but also powerful.
Lily was adjusting in her own way. She didn't cry, didn't ask questions every day, but I could tell she was feeling it. The shift in energy, the careful way we spoke about Daddy's house, like it was a vacation, not a fracture. One night, as I was brushing her hair, she looked at me in the mirror and said, "Are you happier now, Mommy?" The question stunned me because I didn't know how to answer. So I told her the truth, the version she could handle. Some days are hard, but I feel stronger. That's a kind of happy too. She nodded, then said, "You look stronger." And that cracked me open in a different way. I wrote in my journal more often. Some entries were only a few lines. Didn't cry today. That's something. He texted again. Didn't answer. I forgot what silence without tension feels like. Others were long and messy. Letters to myself, to the woman I used to be, to the girl who once thought love meant sacrifice. I started seeing myself as separate from him, not just a wife who was cheated on, not just a mother holding things together, but a woman with dreams, needs, anger, desire. Someone who'd been buried under years of compromise, now slowly clawing her way back to the surface.
Rachel, my therapist, called it emotional re-entry. She said I was relearning how to live in a body that no longer had to brace for disappointment. At first, I didn't believe her, but then it started happening. I noticed it in strange places, the way I laughed at a dumb meme and didn't feel guilty for feeling joy. The way I walked into a bookstore and realized I didn't need to ask permission to spend $20 on a novel. The way I started humming again while cooking. Tiny signs of life, tiny sparks that said, "I'm still here." Of course, not every day was good. Some days were brutal. Like the day the divorce papers arrived and I had to sign my name next to words like irreconcilable differences. Or the night I saw a photo of Josh and Camilla online, smiling, hand in hand, like nothing had ever happened. It gutted me. Not because I wanted him back, but because it felt unfair. How easily he moved on. How weightless he seemed, while I was still stitching myself together with trembling hands. But then I reminded myself, healing isn't loud. It's not always photogenic. It doesn't get likes or comments or approval. It's quiet, private, sacred, and it belongs to me. So I kept going, breath by breath, step by step. And somewhere in that quiet, I started to feel like a person again. Not a victim, not a role, just me. Whoever that was becoming. It started as a journal entry. One of those nights where sleep was impossible. The kind where silence is too loud and the sheets feel too cold, no matter how tightly you wrap yourself in them. I lit a candle, opened my notebook, and just started writing. Not to myself this time. To them. To Josh. To Camila. Not because I wanted closure from them, I stopped expecting that, but because there were things I needed to say out loud, if only once. So I wrote the letter I never intended to send. To Josh. I loved you. Not the way people throw that word around, not casually. I chose you, over and over.
through every hard season, through every job change, every fight, every missed date night. I gave you every piece of myself, even when I had nothing left. I made excuses for your silences, for your distance. I dimmed my voice so you could feel louder. I was loyal, to a fault. And still, you left. Not with your feet, but with your heart. I saw it happen, piece by piece. And instead of asking you to stay, I begged myself to shrink. You didn't just break a promise. You rewrote our story without telling me. And then you handed my trust to someone who once swore she'd protect me. But this letter isn't about blame. It's about release. I release the guilt. I release the shame. I release the need to understand why. Because there is no answer big enough to justify what you did. I am not perfect, but I was true. And you'll have to live with knowing you walked away from someone who loved you without conditions. I hope someday that means something to you, even if it's too late.
I paused, hands trembling, but I wasn't done. There was more. There was her. So I started a second page. To Camilla. I trusted you. In a way, I hadn't trusted anyone outside of blood. You were there for my milestones, my grief, my becoming. I let you into places most people never got to see. And you used that intimacy to find cracks. You didn't just cross a line, you drew one between us and dared me to believe it was blurry. I wanted to hate you, still do sometimes, but mostly I just feel empty. Like the friendship we built was a ghost I keep chasing through memories. And even now, I wonder, did you ever feel guilty? When you held my child's hand? When you stood in my kitchen and laughed with me, knowing you were already stealing something sacred? Or did you convince yourself that you deserved it more? That I was fine, so it didn't count as betrayal? I'll never get the answers I want. But I'm done carrying your silence. I won't let what you did define who I become. I release the version of me who needed you. She's gone. And what's left is someone you don't know anymore. Someone you'll never get to know again. I closed the notebook. Didn't reread it. Didn't need to. Because something in me had shifted. That letter, that messy, tear-stained letter, wasn't for them. It was for me. To prove I could speak without trembling. To say I deserved better and believe it this time. To name the pain without being swallowed by it. I burned the pages the next morning, watched them curl into ash in a metal bowl out back. Not out of rage, but ceremony. A quiet goodbye to the ghosts who had taken up too much space inside me. As the smoke disappeared into the morning light, I whispered, "I'm still here." And for the first time, it felt like enough. It was supposed to be a normal exchange, just another custody handoff in a neutral parking lot. We'd been doing it for weeks. Lily hugged me goodbye, ran to Josh's car, and I waved from the driver's seat. No drama, no conversation. But that day, something was different. He walked over to my window, and before I could stop myself, I rolled it down. Mistake. He looked tired, not in the usual work-worn way, but sunken, unshaven. The way someone looks when their new life isn't as shiny as they thought it would be. "Can we talk?" he asked, voice low. I didn't answer. "I miss you," he said quietly. "I miss our family." I felt my stomach turn.
because he said it like it was something I could give back. Like our family was just a thing we could unpause. Like I hadn't spent months putting myself back together while he played house with my best friend. I stared at him, then said, flatly, "You don't get to say that." His brows pulled together. "Why not?" "Because you ended our family. You made that choice. And now you're lonely, so you want the comfort back, but not the responsibility. That's not fair." "No, what you did wasn't fair."
He leaned against the car, arms crossed, eyes pleading. "I made a mistake, Emily, the biggest one of my life." "And yet," I said slowly, "you kept making it. For a year." His voice cracked. "I didn't know how to stop." I shook my head. "You didn't want to." We sat in silence. Then he tried again. "I still love you." I laughed. It wasn't a pretty sound. It was sharp, bitter, reflexive, like coughing up poison. "You loved the version of me who didn't question you, who kept the house running while you went out and lived a second life." He looked away. And in that moment, I saw it. He wasn't coming back because he loved me. He was coming back because his fantasy had collapsed. Because Camila wasn't who he'd built her up to be. Because real life had set in. Bills, schedules, the quiet reality of betrayal that no longer felt exciting. And now he wanted his anchor back. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I stepped out of the car, walked around, faced him. "I need you to hear this, Josh. Really hear it." He nodded. "I loved you more than I have ever loved anyone. I would have given you anything. And you didn't just betray me. You watched me fall apart and said nothing." He opened his mouth, but I held up my hand. "I'm not saying this for you to respond. I'm saying this because I'm done pretending I'm okay with silence." I stepped closer, my voice steady now. "I will never come back to you. Not in a year, not in 5, not in another lifetime." Tears welled in his eyes. I didn't flinch. "Lily will always have 2 parents, but I only have one future, and it doesn't include you." I walked away, got back into my car, watched him stand there as Lily buckled herself in, smiling up at him from the back seat, blissfully unaware. And as I drove away, I didn't cry, didn't feel hollow. I felt clear. Because sometimes strength isn't a roar. It's a boundary. A sentence spoken without shaking. A goodbye that you don't chase after once it's said. That night, I sat on the porch with a glass of wine and looked at the stars. The same ones I used to wish under. And I whispered a different kind of wish. Let this be the last time I have to let go of someone who doesn't choose me. And for the first time, I believed it might come true. I thought the worst part was over. After the confrontation, after the custody hearing, after the final goodbye on that cold afternoon in the parking lot, I thought I'd finally stepped out of the pain and into something resembling peace. But no one tells you how grief lingers, how it doesn't obey logic, how it sneaks up on you in the cereal aisle or during a movie or when a stranger says your name just like he used to. Grief doesn't hit all at once. It comes in waves. And sometimes, when you're finally learning how to stand again, the undertow pulls you right back under. There was a Saturday morning, not long after that conversation with Josh. Lily was at a sleepover. The house was quiet, still, I opened the closet to change the bed sheets and found one of his old t-shirts, soft, worn, the one he used to sleep in on Sundays. And I just sat on the floor, held it against my face, and sobbed. Not because I wanted him back, but because it reminded me of us, the us that existed before the cracks, before the silence, before betrayal hollowed out the good. There was a version of our love that had felt real. I couldn't pretend it hadn't. And mourning that version was its own kind of heartbreak. My therapist told me something that made me pause. She said, "Grief isn't just about loss, it's about identity. You're mourning who you were in that relationship and who you thought you'd become." And that hit hard because I wasn't just grieving the man, I was grieving the dream, the house, the laughter, the Sunday pancakes, the daughter who would grow up in a home with two parents at the same table. I had built a vision carefully, stubbornly, for years, and now I had to watch it collapse like a sandcastle, one tide at a time.
But somewhere in that grief, something else started to grow. A kind of quiet resilience, small and hard-earned. I began creating new rituals. Saturday mornings became just ours, me and Lily. Pancakes with too many chocolate chips. Cartoons in mismatched pajamas. Hair braiding and messy dance parties in the living room. They weren't perfect, but they were real. Ours. Uncomplicated. Safe. One evening, I lit a candle, the same one I'd burned the night I wrote that unsent letter, and I sat in front of the mirror. No makeup, no filter, just me. I looked at my own reflection for a long time, not to criticize, not to mourn, just to see myself again. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't see someone broken. I saw someone becoming.
There were setbacks, of course. Moments when the loneliness crept in late at night, when I envied happy couples at restaurants, when I missed the feeling of being chosen, even if the person who chose me was a fraud. But each time I fell, I stayed down for a little less time. And each time I stood back up, I felt a little stronger. Healing wasn't linear. It wasn't romantic. It was messy and quiet and deeply personal. But it was mine. And slowly, it started to show. People began to notice. "You look lighter," a coworker said one morning. "You sound more like yourself," my sister told me. "You laugh differently now," Rachel observed in therapy. And they were right. Because something had shifted. I was no longer waiting for someone to fix me. I was becoming my own rescue. One day, Lily drew a picture at school. It was of our house, just the two of us. Big smiles, purple sky, a dog we didn't even own yet. At the top, she wrote, "Me and Mommy, my favorite team." I hung it on the fridge and cried in the kitchen. Not out of sadness, but because I realized maybe I hadn't failed her. Maybe, despite everything, I'd shown her what strength looked like. And maybe that was worth more than the perfect family portrait I used to dream of.
There's a strange silence that settles when your world stops orbiting someone else. It's not empty, not exactly, just unfamiliar. At first, I didn't know what to do with that space. I filled it with laundry, errands, audiobooks I barely heard. I overscheduled my time so I wouldn't sit still long enough to feel. But eventually, in the cracks between responsibilities, something else emerged. Curiosity. Not about Josh, not even about Camila, but about me. Who was I before all this? Before marriage? Before motherhood? Before betrayal hollowed out my voice? I didn't have the full answer, not yet, but I had clues. I remembered loving indie bookstores, the smell of old pages, the feel of paper under my fingers. So one afternoon, I walked into one by myself. No stroller, no toddler snacks, no glancing at my phone every 5 minutes. Just me. I ran my hands along the spines, picked up a poetry book by a woman I'd never heard of, sat in the back corner, and read until I lost track of time. And I didn't tell anyone. Not because it was a secret, but because it was mine. I started saying yes to small things. Lunch with coworkers I used to make excuses to avoid. A Pilates class my sister swore I'd love. An open mic night where a stranger read a poem about heartbreak that made my chest ache. None of it was life-changing on its own, but each little yes was like finding another piece of myself I'd forgotten. And together, they started forming someone new. Friendship felt different now. The word best friend held a weight I wasn't ready to carry. But slowly, I found myself gravitating toward women who didn't ask me to perform, who didn't need the shiny, put-together version of me, just the real one. Messy, cautious, healing. There was Amanda, another mom from Lily's school, who brought wine and Thai food over one night and sat on my kitchen floor with me until midnight telling me her own story of divorce. There was Leah from work, who invited me to a painting workshop even though I warned her I could barely draw a stick figure. She laughed, "I'm not inviting your talent, I'm inviting you." That mattered more than she knew. I also stopped apologizing so much. For taking up space, for needing rest, for saying no. I didn't owe anyone the version of me that always smiled, always said I'm fine, always overextended. I'd lived that way for a decade, bending myself into shapes no one even noticed. Now I was learning how to stand whole, and unbending felt like a revolution. One night, Lily asked me if I was ever going to get married again. She was coloring at the kitchen table, speaking with the casual curiosity of a child who hadn't yet learned the weight of those words. I paused, then said, "Maybe. But only if I find someone who loves the real me, even the parts that aren't perfect." She looked up, blinked. "Like you love me?" I smiled. "Exactly like that." She nodded and went back to coloring. And I realized that love, the kind I gave her without condition or performance, that's the kind I deserve too. I still had moments of grief. They didn't vanish just because I was growing. Healing doesn't erase what came before. It just stops letting it define you. I'd see a couple holding hands at the farmer's market and feel that pinch in my chest. I'd hear a song we used to dance to in the kitchen and need to walk away fast before tears spilled. But now I let those moments come. I let myself feel them without shame. And then I let them go, like waves, because I wasn't drowning anymore. One morning, I woke up and made coffee without checking my phone. No anxious scroll, no subconscious hope for a message that would never come. Just coffee, warm sunlight, a quiet house,
and peace. Not the loud, triumphant kind, but the kind that settles in your bones and lets you breathe without holding anything back.
It happened in the most unexpected way. No dramatic music, no epiphany, just a morning jog and a breeze that caught me off guard. It was late April. The air was still cool enough to sting my lungs a little, but the sun had that soft, golden warmth that felt like a promise. I hadn't run in years, not since before Lily, not since before life became a careful balance of everyone else's needs but mine. But that day, something inside me said, go. So I put on old sneakers, tied my hair back, and ran. At first, my body protested. My lungs burned. My legs felt like lead. But I kept going, block by block, until the rhythm became familiar. Like I was remembering something I didn't even know I'd forgotten. And somewhere between mile 1 and 2, something shifted. I felt light, unburdened. I wasn't running toward anything or away from anything. I was just moving for myself, by myself. No wedding ring, no fake smiles, no pretending. Just the sound of my breath, my heartbeat, and the wind in my ears. And I realized, with a sudden, startling clarity, I felt free.
2, 1. Not happy, necessarily. Not healed. Not over it. But free. Like the cord that tethered me to the pain, to the lies, the shame, the weight of not being enough, had quietly snapped without me noticing. And in its place was air, space, possibility. When I got home, I stood in front of the mirror in my sweat-soaked clothes and smiled. Not because I looked good, but because I looked real. Flushed cheeks, wild hair, clear eyes. The woman staring back at me wasn't fragile. She wasn't broken. She was strong, soft, wide open. I whispered, "There you are." And for the first time in years, I believed it. Later that day, I took Lily to the park. We shared a sandwich under the big oak tree, then laid back in the grass, staring up at the clouds. She pointed to one shaped like a turtle. I pointed to one shaped like a heart. We giggled, talked about nothing, held hands without thinking. And I thought, this is the kind of life I almost gave up on. Not because I wanted to die, but because I couldn't imagine feeling joy without him in the picture. But here we were, laughing in the sunlight, and he wasn't anywhere in sight. That night, after I tucked her in, I sat by the window with a glass of water and let myself feel it. The peace, the gratitude, the quiet pulse of healing still humming in the background. And I knew freedom doesn't always look like escape. Sometimes it looks like choosing yourself, again and again, even when it would be easier to fold. Sometimes it sounds like your own voice, finally steady. Sometimes it feels like breath after holding it for too long. The next morning, I wrote in my journal, "Today, I didn't think about him once. Not when I woke up, not when I brushed my teeth, not when I made coffee. I didn't wonder where he was, or if he missed me, or if she was still in the picture. I just lived, and it was enough." Healing, I realized, isn't a destination. It's not a clean line, not a checklist. It's 1,000 quiet decisions to keep going, to keep choosing hope, to keep building something new, even from ruins. And on that spring morning,
sweaty and breathless and free, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. I hadn't just survived. I was starting to live. I used to think healing would feel like a finish line. Like one day I'd wake up, stretch my arms, and feel done, whole, complete, over it. But that's not how it works. Healing, I've learned, is less like a straight road and more like a spiral staircase. You circle around the same emotions again and again. But each time, you're a little higher, a little steadier, a little more yourself. I'm not who I was before the betrayal, but I'm not who I was during it either. I'm someone new now, someone softer in some ways, harder in others. I no longer say, I'm fine when I'm not. I no longer over-explain my boundaries. I no longer beg to be chosen. I choose me now, not because I'm selfish, but because I finally understand that being whole isn't something someone else can give you. It's something you give yourself, piece by piece, with patience and love. Some days I still grieve, not for him, but for her, the woman I was before it all came crashing down. She was innocent, hopeful, blind to the weight she carried in silence. I don't hate her. I honor her because she kept going, even when her world collapsed, even when her heart broke, even when the people she trusted most walked away. She survived long enough for me to be born. The woman I am now owes everything to the woman who refused to give up. I still believe in love. I know that might surprise you, but I do. Not the performative kind. Not the kind that asks you to disappear to make someone else feel big. Not the kind that hides behind lies and cheap promises. I believe in the kind of love that sees you, that holds space, that grows quietly, without demands. And maybe someday I'll find it again. But I won't wait for it like I used to, because my life is already full of laughter, of stillness, of purpose, and most importantly, of me. Lily still asks questions sometimes. Do you remember when we all lived together? Do you think Daddy's sorry? Why did Aunt Camila stop calling me? And I answer with honesty that matches her age, with gentleness, with truth, because I don't want her to grow up thinking love equals pain, or that silence is safer than honesty. I want her to see strength in softness, to know that leaving doesn't mean failing, to understand that forgiveness isn't for them, it's for you. And when she looks at me with those wide, wondering eyes, I hope she sees a woman who chose herself and never looked back. I don't know what comes next. Maybe I'll fall in love again. Maybe I'll stay single. Maybe I'll write a book. Maybe I'll just keep showing up for my little girl, one bedtime story at a time. But whatever happens, I'll be okay, because I've already walked through fire. I've already rebuilt from ashes. And now, when I look in the mirror, I don't see damage. I see depth. I see strength. I see a woman who knows her worth and refuses to forget it again. To anyone listening, maybe your heart's still broken. Maybe you're still in the middle of the storm. Maybe you don't know how to breathe without them yet. But I promise, even in the wreckage, even when it hurts like hell, there's a version of you waiting on the other side. She's strong, she's soft, she's sacred, and she's worth fighting for. This is the end of my story. Not the end of my life.
Not the end of love, just the end of one chapter and the beginning of everything else.